MD, have you loud and clear on countdown 1.
MD loud and clear, stand by for comm check over Dragon to ground. Dragon, MD on Dragon to ground, comm check.
MD, loud and clear, Dragon to ground.
MD loud and clear, stand by for comm checks with LD.
Dragon, LD on countdown 1, comm check.
LD, loud and clear, countdown 1.
LD, loud and clear, stand by for a comm check over Dragon to ground. Dragon, LD on Dragon to ground, comm check.
LD, loud and clear, Dragon to ground.
LD, loud and clear.
And Dragon SpaceX launch configuration comm checks complete. Report when ready for seat rotation per section 2 of 4.100.
All right, and you heard that call. The communications checks are complete from all the various
SpaceX Endeavour, we are ready for seat rotation.
Copy. Will report when initiating.
Excellent. The communications checks are complete. The next step will be the visual milestone of seat rotation. So again, those communication checks were through some of the various paths of communication to Dragon, including through some of the ground lines as well as ground stations.
Dragon SpaceX initiating seat rotation.
Copy.
And you can see on your screen that seat rotation has now begun. They are rotating from upright to the recline launch position. And this will give Shane Kimbrough and Megan MacArthur access to those display panels right above them. And it's very slow and steady, but this is a pretty cool view that we have here on our screen.
An amazing view, really.
You could see how much cargo space we have under those seats as well.
Dragon SpaceX seats are in the launch position.
Copy. Great news.
And that seat rotation is now complete. You can already see them getting their hands on that touch screen.
Dragon SpaceX, you are go for section 3, suit leak check preparation.
Copy. Go for section 3.
These milestones really happening in rapid succession. As you mentioned, Jesse, it wasn't really too long until they reached up and started touching through some of those procedures. That first one, of course, is the suit leak checks. Communications checks complete from all the various communication paths, and seats are rotated into the position for launch. Those seats specially designed for each astronaut. Not only it allows them to access that display panel.
Chair complete, ready for leak check.
Copy Endeavour, we see the same. Your go for section 4, suit leak check.
Section 4 in work.
And they've now begun those suit leak checks. So to catch up on the station side, let's check in with Courtney at Johnson Space Center. Courtney, how's it going?
Thanks, Jesse. As we said earlier, the team here in Mission Control Houston is actively controlling and monitoring the space station as they await Dragon's arrival. The Expedition 65 crew is in the early part of their day after waking up at 1 a.m. Central Time. The crew on board have completed a number of tasks to prepare the station for Crew-2's arrival. NASA's Victor Glover received some additional onboard training for monitoring Dragon during its final approach, which he'll do from the station's cupola. In addition, he will set up computers sensors and control panels needed for approach, monitoring, and hatch operations, and pre-position emergency equipment. He will also work with Soichi Noguchi to get the extra station crew quarters ready for the new residents. Back here in Houston, our rotating flight directors and their teams will be in constant communication with the SpaceX mission director for the duration of the flight uphill. Once we get integrated operations, the NASA flight director will be conducting a series of go, no-go polls at the predetermined checkpoints for Dragon's approach. For now, we'll continue to follow along from here in Mission Control Houston, so I'll send it back to the team at Kennedy. Over to you, Marie.
All right, thank you, Courtney. If you're just joining us, it is T-minus 2 hours, 18 minutes and counting until the first astronaut launch of the year from U.S. soil and the third crew launch for SpaceX in NASA's Commercial Crew program.
Commander Shane Kimbrough, pilot Megan MacArthur, and mission specialists Thomas Pesquet and Aki Hoshide are strapped into their seats, rotated back, and safely inside Crew Dragon Endeavour. The next milestones coming up are, actually we just completed seat rotation, and we're gonna have hatch closing coming up shortly.
This will be the first reuse of Crew Dragon. This is the same capsule that flew Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley in SpaceX test flight to the space station last year. The crew today is also flying on the same Falcon 9 rocket booster that lifted the Crew-1 astronauts into orbit last fall. And we are also ready to see the first European astronaut fly in Crew Dragon. Of course, that's Thomas Pesquet. And NASA's Jasmine Hopkins is at a nearby viewing location with a special guest from the European Space Agency. Jasmine?
Thanks, Marie. Crew-2 will be the first commercial crew mission to include 2 astronauts from our international partners. And here to talk to us more about it is Frank Davina, ESA's manager for the International Space Station program.
Copy, we see the same. Good leak checks. Closeout team will perform.
Good morning, good afternoon in Europe.
Thank you so much for being here today with us, Frank. We got some call-outs happening over the waves right now, but we're going to continue with your interview. So you understand the space station as both an astronaut and as a manager. You flew there twice. Can you tell us what today's mission means to ESA?
Well, today is a very important mission, of course, for ESA. It's the first time that we fly an ESA astronaut on a U.S. commercial crew vehicle, the Dragon, the Crew-2. And it's also the start because we fly Thomas Pesquet today on the Alpha mission, but in fall we will fly Matthias Maurer, and next year we will be back here to fly Samantha Cristoforetti. So it's really a great time for ESA to be on these missions. We have 4 USOS crew members now permanently on the International Space Station, which means that we have a big increase in the number of hours of crew time utilization that we can do. So we have a whole science package from ESA, but also from our partner agency, CNES, that will be executed during this Alpha mission on board. So it's a great time to be here, and we are very excited.
Right, that is fantastic. And we are very excited. It's also an exciting time for ESA because you are going through astronaut selections as well. Can you talk to us about how ESA is planning to expand the number of European astronauts on the space station?
Yes, we are indeed starting a new astronaut selection this year. The campaign is running. We are asking all people from around Europe to participate and to put in their candidacy till the end of May. And then the selection process will take about a year, and then by the end of next year we hope to select a new class of astronauts that then will fly towards the International Space Station as of 25, 26, something like that. And so we are also working with our international partners, of course, like NASA, to extend the space station till 2030, because from an ESA point of view, it's very important that we continue the research and the technology development that we can do on the space station. Of course, science for the benefit of humankind here on Earth, but also to prepare for the future of exploration. As you know, ESA is also a participant in the Gateway. Some of the astronauts will fly to the Gateway as well, so we need to expand our reach of humankind in the rest of the universe.
Right, that's fantastic. We know there's a lot of great science that's going to be going on board the space station, especially from Thomas Pesquet. You've spoken about the European robotic arm previously. Can you tell us more about that and how he's going to be involved?
Yes, also the 15th of July, we will see the launch of the MLM from Baikonur, from our Russian colleagues Roscosmos. And on this multi-lab purpose module, there will be the
दिल्ली के
European
मुख्यमंत्री
robotic
अरविंद
arm.
केजरीवाल पर
A
पीएम
robotic
मोदी
arm
की
that
बैठक
has
में
been,
सियासत
prepared
का
long
आरोप
time
लगा
ago,
है।
has been
केजरीवाल
long
ने
time
पीएम
in
की बैठक की
storage,
बातें
been
टीवी पर
waiting for its launch.
की,
And
साथ
now
ही
finally
आरोप
we will
ये
be
भी है
able
कि
to commission
उन्होंने
the
ऑक्सीजन
European
और
robotic arm,
वैक्सीन पर झूठ बोला। सूत्रों के
during
मुताबिक
the flight
केजरीवाल
of,
ने
Thomas
कोरोना पर
Pesquet. The
दिल्ली के
first
कामों
part
को
of the
नहीं बताया,
commissioning, the second
जबकि
part
सभी
will
मुख्यमंत्रियों ने
happen during the
अपने
flight of,
अपने काम
Matthias
बताए और
Mohr.
ये बैठक
And then
इसीलिए रखी
hopefully
गई
we
थी।
can
ये
start
बैठक
using
इसीलिए
this
रखी गई
arm
थी
also
ताकि
to
मुख्यमंत्रियों से
enhance the
ये
capabilities of the space
जाना जा
station on the
सके,
Russian
ये
segment,
समझा जा सके
to
कि
place, for
उनके राज्यों में
example,
स्थिति क्या क्या और
experiments on the
दिक्कतें क्या
outside
क्या है,
of the
लेकिन इन
Russian
सबके
segment,
बीच
or to
अरविंद
relocate
केजरीवाल की
some
तरफ से
modules. So
अपनी
we are very
तरफ से जो
excited
उठाए
as
गए
well
कदम है
to also
उसको
work
लेकर बात
with
नहीं
our
रखी गई।
Russian colleagues
अमिताभ
of
सिन्हा इस वक्त
Roscosmos
हमारे
and
वरिष्ठ
Energia
सहयोगी हमारे साथ
to
जुड़
get
गए हैं।
finally this
अमिताभ जी,
European robotic
क्या
arm
ऐसे
launched
वक्त
to
में
the space
सियासत
station.
जरूरी है? क्योंकि
I know that's
जिस
very
तरीके से
exciting.
आज
We're
सभी
glad to
राज्यों के
see some of those
मुख्यमंत्रियों के साथ
specifics
बैठक
of
ली
what he's
प्रधानमंत्री
going to be
मोदी ने
working on
ये
on
जानने
board.
के लिए कि
Can you
उन्होंने
tell
अपने
us
अपने
the results of
राज्यों में
the
क्या
Myanmar
कदम उठाए
Control
उसकी
on
जानकारी दें, क्या
SpaceX?
स्थिति है उसकी जानकारी दें। बावजूद इसके
Well, it's very
इसकी जानकारी
important
नहीं दी गई
that we have
केजरीवाल
this
की तरफ से।
partnership going, of course, in the
बिल्कुल
International
सरकार की
Space
केंद्र
Station.
सरकार की नाराजगी इसी बात
At
को
one
लेकर
day,
है कि जब 10
the
मुख्यमंत्रियों
ISS
को
will come to
बुलाया
an
गया
end,
था बातचीत करने के लिए कि
but for
कैसे
sure the
ऑक्सीजन का
partnership will
डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन बढ़ाया
continue,
जाए अस्पतालों
and
को,
that is
कैसे
already
ऑक्सीजन की
clear
सप्लाई
in the
बढ़ाई जाए,
Gateway
कैसे
program
दवा
now, and we
वैक्सीन की
hope to
सप्लाई
extend
बढ़ाया
that
जाए।
further
ऐसे में
to the lunar surface
दिल्ली के
with the
मुख्यमंत्री
astronaut
अरविंद
with
केजरीवाल
the
ने
Artemis
प्रधानमंत्री
program,
और
and
मुख्यमंत्रियों
also
के
have
प्राइवेट
European astronauts
प्राइवेट
one day
कन्वर्सेशन
walking
को,
on the surface
प्राइवेट
of the moon.
बातचीत को
So the
टेलीवाइज
partnership
कर
for
दिया
us
है,
is
टेलीविजन
extremely
पर दिखा
important
दिया
to
है।
be able
ये
to
पहली बार ऐसा
execute
हुआ है,
our
यही पीएमओ
exploration
की सबसे
program,
बड़ी
but
नाराजगी
also
है
the
और
commercial
बीजेपी ने इसके
partnership
बारे
is
में
very
खुलकर अरविंद
important because
केजरीवाल मुख्यमंत्री
ESA
दिल्ली पर
wants
आरोप
to
लगाने
continue to
शुरू कर
fly
दिए हैं।
astronauts
कई
to
बीजेपी के
low Earth
प्रवक्ताओं
orbit
ने इस पर
even
ट्वीट भी
after the
किया है
ISS.
और कहा है कि
We want to be
केजरीवाल
able to
ने
do
पूरी की
research
पूरी
in
बैठक
low
जो
Earth
है
orbit
वो
after
सियासत
the
के लिए
ISS,
की
do
थी, उन्होंने
technology
कोई
development
समाधान
that
नहीं
we
दिया।
will need for
बाकी
further
सारे
exploration
मुख्यमंत्री जितने
after the
मुख्यमंत्रियों ने
ISS.
यहाँ पर
But most
प्रधानमंत्री के साथ
probably
अपनी
it will not be the
बातचीत
same
की है, उन्होंने
configuration
अपने
anymore
राज्य
as
में
we
क्या
have
क्या
today.
कदम उठाए जा
It will
रहे
be in
हैं,
a
समाधान के
partnership
लिए उस
with
पर
the
चर्चा की
commercial
थी,
sector.
उसके बारे में
It's
प्रधानमंत्री और
what we
केंद्र
call the LEO economy. And so one of the tasks that we have as well at ESA is to help build this LEO economy so that we can also have a good and thriving future of astronautics, flying astronauts, research and science in low Earth orbit after the ISS.
Right. We have a lot to look forward to then from ESA. Frank DeVena, thank you so much for being here with us today. Now we're going to take it back to the KSC host desk.
All right, thanks, Jasmine. Teams are running about 16 minutes ahead of schedule, and hatch close will be happening momentarily. So we're going to go over to John Insprucker in Hawthorne. John?
Thanks, Marie. We are coming up on T-minus 2 hours, 12 minutes and counting. Right now, the Falcon 9 team is on console in firing room 4. They are preparing for their communication checks with the crew. That's due at about T-minus 1 hour, 55 minutes. SpaceX engineers right now, they're continuing to pressurize the launch vehicle gas storage bottles. These are composite overwrapped pressure vessels. They contain gases used to fill the tanks with hot helium as the propellant is drained out of the first and second stages. We're also storing helium and nitrogen gases on the vehicle. We use those to spin the Merlin engine turbopumps when we start an engine in space. For example, when we light the second stage engine after it separates from the first stage. We're also using gas for attitude control systems. Both the first and second stages of the Falcon 9 have an ACS system. And finally, the landing systems use the gas to help with the grid fins and then deploying the legs right before touchdown on the drone ship. Now, currently for Falcon 9, the countdown is proceeding nominally at this point. On board the Dragon spacecraft Endeavour, we heard the comm checks just a little while ago between Dragon team and crew. We've seen the astronauts rotate their seats to the flight position. We've successfully completed the suit leak checks. And we're watching right now as the hatch is coming down as part of the closure sequence of events. And then once we get the hatch closed, the SpaceX support team will perform a final leak check of that hatch. Now, once that leak check is finished and it passes, the team will then begin the steps to ready the access arm for retraction. Once they've got everything configured, the team will leave the pad by T-minus 1 hour at the latest. Now, T-minus 2 hours coming up here very shortly. Kennedy Space Center personnel will begin final sweeps of the flight caution and hazard areas. Right now, the only people that are inside the roadblocks in a perimeter around pad 39A are the crew and the SpaceX support team that you see on your monitor. And right now, as we get ready to bring the hatch down, we're going to go back to the team at Kennedy Space Center.
Thanks for that update, John. As you can see, we are preparing for the closure of the side hatch. The closeout team there in the black SpaceX flight suits that you see have performed a final FOD check, and they've gotten the final okay from the crew inside the capsule to confirm that they are indeed ready to go to space today. As you can see, the side hatch has just been closed. This is a little bit more complicated than it may seem. So it's this initial closure, and then there will be actual mechanical closure using a torque wrench, which we should see here momentarily. Might be, yeah, we can see that happening now. And then afterward, we will inflate the seal that's around the side hatch in order to do that leak check. We'll inflate the seal, apply a pressure basically, and make sure that the hatch is able to hold that designated pressure for a couple of minutes. And once that's done, we'll put the side closure there on the open part of the hatch that still remains. And like John said, at that point, the crew will then begin to prepare the crew access arm for retraction.
And I can't emphasize this enough. We've seen this time and time again with SpaceX. The written timeline, has very specific times laid out, but oftentimes we see that they're ahead of schedule, and that's certainly the case here.
Side hatch is closed and starting leak checks on schedule.
Okay, so we heard the announcement that the side hatch is
Copy.
closed.
Thanks for the words, Chad.
And leak checks are beginning momentarily on the side hatch. Now, when I say that they're ahead of schedule, that does not mean the launch time is changing. Launch is instantaneous. That cannot change. That's holding for 5:49 and 2 seconds this morning, Eastern Daylight Time. But when the teams work ahead, as they are in this case, if everything goes well with the side hatch leak checks, all that does is give them more time, more margin to troubleshoot if an issue does pop up after this point. So they may be running ahead of the timeline, but regardless, we're still going to see launch, if everything goes well, at 5:49 and 2 seconds this morning.
And what we're seeing now is the closeout team basically installing the fixture that will allow us to begin to inflate that seal that is around the side hatch, which, like I said, pressurizing and then for a couple of minutes to ensure that the side hatch is able to maintain that designated pressure. As you can see, everyone's following along with procedures on their tablets. Everyone has a specific job. That's what the numbers are for, located on the back of the of the flight suits. Everyone has a specific role, and all of this has been practiced multiple times, which is why it looks like the well-oiled machine that we see here. Stacy, at this point in time, the door is closed. You know stuff is happening on the outside. Where is your heart? Where is your head at this point in the launch countdown? Because you're not quite there yet, but like you said earlier, your suit's on, so like the on button has been pushed.
Exactly. Exactly. And right now, I imagine I've not been in the Dragon capsule, but I'm pretty sure the crew can hear what the closeout crew is doing right now. So they're probably listening to the mechanisms and their spacecraft breathing. But at this point, now that the hatch is closed, it's like a new phase. It's just the four of you, and from this point forward, that it's just the four of you. So your focus kind of comes in a little bit before you're coordinating with the second team, but now it's just the four of you, and then the voices that you hear. So it's kind of it's a transition.
We got word that the crew aboard the International Space Station is also watching all of this unfold live. Of course, they were sitting in these seats at the pad in their Crew Dragon Resilience that's currently docked to the International Space Station. So that crew is watching the crew on the pad today and getting ready to welcome them aboard if all goes as planned early tomorrow morning. And again, if you're just joining us, the side hatch of the Crew Dragon Endeavour on the launch pad has just closed, and leak checks of that side hatch are in progress. This is a view of the White Room with members of the SpaceX pad closeout team you see in the black flight suits. And the shot we saw just before this was from inside the Crew Dragon Endeavour capsule.
Like I mentioned earlier, it's not as simple as just closing the door on your car or to your house. We do inflate the seal around the side hatch.
Oh no. They're playing rock, paper, scissors. Double-fisted rock, paper, scissors.
What's the prize?
What's
That's
the
what I want to
wager?
know.
I know.
What's the end game here?
Yeah, what's at stake?
So, like I said, this process takes a couple of minutes. We inflate the seal around the side hatch and make sure that it's able to maintain that pressure for a couple of minutes prior to actually performing the rest of the physical preparation of the side hatch itself. Which at that point, after the successful leak check, will mostly just involve removing the remaining ground support equipment away from the area and installing the tiny hatch on the hatch. The rock, paper, scissors shoot with the Crew-2 crew continues on.
I was going to say, yeah, let's get back to the technical part of the rock, paper, scissors. They did this during dry dress, and we wondered what was going on. And it may be that they're just making up for lost time. I don't remember seeing them do this during the suit up. And so they're getting in their rock, paper, scissor now.
It's critical.
It's totally critical.
But in all seriousness, I think that, you know, when we see the joke, that we see the crew kind of joke around and have those moments of levity, they can do that because they know these procedures like the back of their hand. It's all like muscle memory at this point because they've rehearsed it so many times.
Yeah, this is definitely a good sign. They have a moment of levity.
So it's T-minus 2 hours, 2 minutes and counting. The hatch close has been completed a little bit ahead of schedule, and we're awaiting the results of a side hatch leak check to make sure they can proceed.
I'd love to know what the winner gets in this rock, paper, scissors game that we see.
This will be probably a question, the first opportunity they have to answer questions after this.
See, I just happen to be looking at the crew's schedule on board right now, and my memory of those days being on board waiting for a crew to come up to see you. It's a lot of anticipation because they're coming to see you, and so I'm just thinking about Mike and Shannon and Victor and Suichi, Mark on board, at least in the U.S. segment, to be anticipating this. And they just got their day started, and I see a lot of flexible activities, and so they're probably getting updates from Mission Control right now.
We have time to take a couple of questions for social media while this hatch leak check is in progress, if we could pull one of those up. Does food taste the same in space? Tracy, you're the only one here that can answer that.
I think that one's for me. I would say that food probably tastes the same. It's your taste buds detecting it that go through a little alteration. For me, spicy foods took on a different flavor. Every astronaut's different, so you'll get a different answer depending on who you ask. But shrimp cocktail, loved it on the ground, could not tolerate it in orbit. But
it's very interesting.
Yeah, it was disappointing too because I really liked it, and I packed a lot for that flight.
Bummer.
Yeah.
Next question. Are the big touch screens that the astronauts are looking at just for looking up data and docking on the International Space Station, or could the astronauts do something different with them, like open the side hatch or go thrusters manually? Kate.
Yeah, that's a great question. The screens are primarily used for final approach to the station. Everyone can actually see which thrusters are thrusting when, as Dragon is slowing itself down and steering and basically positioning itself to dock with the International Space Station. But for the actions that are like that were mentioned in the question, there are actually a number of hardwired buttons located below the screens there. They're a little difficult to see, so there are some commanding buttons that are located there
तो जैसा कि आपने
that would be used in the event of an emergency. I'm not quite sure what each and every button is, but there are also actually a couple of buttons located on the left armrest. You might be able to see it there just under Commander Shane Kimbrough's left arm. There's actually a small control panel that allows them to basically turn their volume up and down, turns on their task light, which is a little personal light there inside the cabin, and of course transmit their communications. So there are a couple of different buttons located around. The ones used most often are certainly there on the side of their arm.
Next question from social media. Why did the other Crew Dragon capsule have to undock and redock on a different space station port? What prevents Crew-2 simply from docking at that other port to avoid all of the repositioning? So that's a great question, and I'm going to try to explain it in a simple way. So the shorter answer is the Crew Dragon Resilience could dock to either the forward port or the zenith port. They're going to be docking to the forward port. That is where the Crew Dragon Resilience, excuse me, I misspoke. The Crew Dragon Endeavor is what's on the pad, and they can dock to either the forward port or the zenith port. The Crew Dragon Resilience, which is already on station, relocated from the forward port to the zenith port earlier this month, and that actually had more to do with the Cargo Dragon flight that's coming up this summer. The preferred port for Cargo Dragon is the zenith port, so that keeps the zenith port open for the Cargo Dragon when Resilience departs to come home in just a few days. So it's a little bit of musical chairs, a little bit of just rearranging parking spots on the International Space Station because it's pretty hopping up there.
What a great problem to have, though. Too many dragons. We got to move things around. One thing that we did learn that came out of that activity, so in order